Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. This session is about the ideology of standard language. I hope and expect by the end of this session you would be able to understand the term ideology of standard language, and you would also be able to understand how does it operate. Well, my dear students, when we think of commonly used languages, widely used languages, so there are languages like English, French, Spanish, etc. And with the idea of these languages comes the idea of a standard variety of each of these languages to our head. And actually, this is what influences our thought. This is what affects how speakers think about our own languages, about their own languages in general sense. English, French or Spanish, as I said, for each one there is a particular variety, there is a particular standardized form that is attached to them, and that is what would be considered English, French, etc. And the other varieties would be considered deviant. Speakers of such varieties who use these languages, they think these are the standard languages, and actually they live in the standard language cultures. In such cultures, what happens? Language attitudes are dominated by powerful ideological positions that are largely based on the supposed existence of a standard form. As layperson, we think that yes, there is a standard form of every language. This is what we believe in. Actually, we believe in it so much that we are not even conscious of it. The idea of being a standard language. For us, the name of that particular language is equal to that particular standard variety. Usually, we also, as speakers, we believe in certain kinds of attitudes towards language, as we talk of these standardized languages. But we don't think so that there is any political issues or any ideological issues are attached with that. For them, this is a matter of common sense. But if we stop here for a minute and we think about what actually standardization is. In fact, standardization applies to many things in our lives. For example, if we look around, we can notice there are standardized weights, there are standardized electrical plugs, standardized, fittings that are made in factories. The weighting system, how to weigh things. For measurements, we have different scales, and everything is standardized in the world, how we use it. What is the purpose of this standardization? It is desirable for functional reasons. If the process of weighing things, for example, or the process of measuring the length of things, if we are using different scales, for example, everybody is using a different scale, there would be functionally a lot of problems. So in order to make functionality easy and possible, actually, this process of standardization is carried out. In the same way, if switches and plugs that are made by every factory, for example, if they are different, so how would the people who are using them would plug them in their houses? Because then there would be functional problems of how to use them. So process of standardization consists of the imposition of uniformity. By standardizing, what do? Is we make it uniform, we make it alike, we make it same. And the most important structural property of a standard variety of a language when we apply the same formula to our language is that it is made uniform, that it would have the same characteristics, that it would be invariant. This invariance is important, that there won't be any varieties within that. It would be one, the same for, different functions. Now, if we look at this situation, ideally, in that case, in a standard, variety of language, all the sounds should be produced, should be pronounced in the same way. all the speakers should use the same grammatical structures, all the words should be written in the same, orthographic style, etc. However, we know that pronunciations vary from groups to groups, from people to people, and from individual to individual, even within a community where a standardized language is used. So in a way, this idea of standardization is something that we may call ideal. Because this idea also gives rise to the notion that language should not undergo any change. It should remain the same, because that sameness is what we call standardization. But actually, languages keep on changing. So if we take the example of English, in principle, when there are two or more varieties of some linguistic forms in English, of course, then one of them would be correct, the other one should be rejected. If I give you the example here, for example, whether one should use you were or you was. Now, alright, if we are choosing you were as a standard, you were there, you were here, you were doing this, etc. If we are choosing this as a standard form, then you was has to be rejected. What we are doing in this process, we are choosing one variant and we are rejecting the other variant. However, how the choice is made, which one is to be chosen and which one is to be rejected, this is a very, very crucial question, because this is not very simple. Inherently, there is nothing in the language that is right or that is wrong. It is we, the users, that make it right or wrong, that consider it right and wrong. And why do we do that? Because there are certain ideological perspectives attached to that. So, a standard language is an idealized form. It is an idealization, and the varieties that we call standard English, for example, or standard French, for example, it means they have to be used in uniformity. They need to be retained in that uniformity, and there shouldn't be any changes, which is possible only ideally. Otherwise, practically, it is not possible. The last point that I would like to make about the issue or the idea of ideologies of standard language is that most of the times ideologies of standard languages are related to political issues, and basically for political stability, for political power, different states use the ideologies of languages. If we think of Pakistan, in fact, in the creation of Pakistan, this ideology of, two-nation theory combined with the ideology of two languages, was at work.